Sabotage against Hamilton in Monaco. Stay until the end to find out why they won't let Hamilton win. Who do you think is behind all this? If you haven't heard about this yet, this video is for you. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. It began as little more than an odd murmur, a faint vibration in the paddock's collective atmosphere during the early hours of Saturday morning in Austria. Just a ripple, barely a whisper, floating beneath the alpine silence of the Styrian hills. But by midday, it had transformed into an unspoken reality, shared with lingering glances and clenched jaws among those in Formula One's most exclusive inner circles. Something was undeniably, unmistakably wrong in Lewis Hamilton's side of the Ferrari garage. This wasn't the usual pre-race drama or mind games meant to unsettle rivals. This was something different. Something colder, more calculated. The sun had barely broken over the towering forest surrounding Spielberg when Hamilton arrived at the paddock, noticeably earlier than usual. No entourage, no smiles, no waves. Just a brief nod to a couple of familiar faces before disappearing straight into the heart of Ferrari's motorhome, bypassing all distractions. He didn't even pause for his usual espresso. Instead, he headed directly into the sanctuary of his engineering room, where raw data replaces rumors, and silence is filled by the hum of simulations and telemetry readouts. Lewis had been wrestling with a sensation since FP1, a strange disconnection, like the car wasn't talking to him the way it should. It wasn't just poor traction or understeer. It was more insidious than that. Every time he pushed the SF-25, it felt like something was fighting back. Subtle throttle delays. Energy deployment patterns that didn't align with inputs. Power surges that came too late, or not at all. He'd mentioned it to the engineers after FP2, but they chalked it up to tire warm-up issues and evolving track grip. Even after FP3, they attributed it to shifting winds and minor setup asymmetries. But Lewis wasn't convinced. He'd driven through the impossible before, survived mechanical failures, dodged chaos in rain-soaked corners, and found grip on oil-slicked straights where others spun helplessly. He knows what a bad setup feels like. And he knows what sabotage feels like too, even if it's dressed up in data and buried behind software logs. And this? This was surgical. Still, what truly raised the alarm wasn't just instinct. It was what happened next, when Hamilton insisted on seeing Charles Leclerc's telemetry. That demand didn't go over smoothly. The room grew tense. A few of the engineers exchanged nervous glances, others hesitated. The Ferrari garage, always a hive of professionalism, suddenly felt cold, secretive. Hamilton, however, didn't flinch. He pushed. Politely but firmly. He reminded them of parity, of fairness, of transparency, values Ferrari claimed to uphold when they signed him. Eventually, with some quiet pressure from above and a call or two from Maranello, the data was released. What he found made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The comparison was shocking. Even with the same tire compounds, similar fuel loads, and on near-identical run programs, Leclerc was consistently 0.2 seconds quicker, but not in the expected places. It wasn't in the medium-speed corners, where driving style could make a difference. It wasn't in the technical turns where minor setup preferences could change behavior. No, it was in the straights. Sector 3. The heavy acceleration zones. The battery deployment areas. The ones that rely purely on what the car gives you, not what you extract through finesse. And the most damning piece of the puzzle? The energy release map. Leclerc was hitting full battery deployment 60 meters later than Hamilton. That meant he had power for longer stretches of the track, more top-end speed, better traction out of corners. It wasn't just a setup issue. It was something coded. Something intentional. Lewis sat in stunned silence for nearly 10 minutes, scrolling through frame after frame of throttle traces, MGUK deployment logs, ERS maps. Everything painted the same picture. The SF-25 was betraying him, and doing so in a way designed to be just subtle enough to mask as performance variation. Was it a glitch? A software error? Or was it something more deliberate? He confronted his lead engineer quietly that afternoon. No shouting. No accusations. Just a calm, measured conversation behind closed doors. The engineer denied everything, but his eyes told a different story. A story of pressure, of politics, of divided loyalties within a team still torn between its golden child Leclerc and the global superstar who had arrived demanding a championship-caliber car. Back in his hotel that night, Lewis stared at the ceiling for hours. He didn't sleep. His mind cycled endlessly through theories and possibilities. Was someone within Ferrari trying to protect Charles? Was this sabotage? Was it a technical error being swept under the rug? Or worse, was this a sign that the Scuderia never truly intended to give him equal footing? He thought back to the contract meetings, the smiles, the promises of parity, the talk of two number ones. But promises mean little in a sport built on political maneuvering and hidden agendas. And now, as the reality of Sunday's race loomed, Lewis knew he was no longer just racing rivals on the track. He was racing ghosts in the garage. And whatever this was, glitch, mistake, or betrayal, it was only the beginning. Because if there's one thing history has taught the world of Formula One, it's that you never cross Lewis Hamilton. And when he senses a war coming, he prepares to fight. Lewis Hamilton stood there frozen, his gaze fixed on the telemetry screen in front of him. Data points streamed across the monitor like a digital storm, but one detail kept blinking like a red alarm. His car was off, drastically. Not just the usual setup differences. Not just minor balance issues. This was targeted, precise, deliberate. His right hand curled slowly into a fist, veins pushing against the skin as the pressure built. Then bang, his knuckles slammed against the carbon fiber desk, sending a sharp echo through the engineering room. Several engineers jumped, startled. One even dropped his headset. But no one dared speak. No one dared move. Hamilton didn't shout. His voice, when it came, was low, too calm. The kind of calm that hides a hurricane. "I want answers," he said, slowly and coldly, like ice spreading across glass. "This car is not configured like his. I've been patient. I've listened. I've trusted. But now I know. Someone's tampered with my systems. This isn't incompetence. This is sabotage." Silence. No one met his eyes. The head of performance analysis looked down. The strategy chief rubbed the back of his neck. Lewis turned without waiting for a response, his boots echoing against the tiles as he stormed out of the engineering bay. The door hissed shut behind him. He cut through the maze of Ferrari's hospitality suite like a man possessed. Every crew member, in turn, and guest stepped out of his way. No smiles. No greetings. Just wide eyes and nervous glances. He passed the espresso bar, the meeting room, the simulator trailer, until he reached the back, the driver's lounge. The air was quieter here, almost serene. That serenity shattered the moment Hamilton threw open the door. Charles Leclerc was reclined on the couch, iPad in hand, reviewing sector deltas. He looked up, surprised. "Lewis." Hamilton didn't wait. He didn't sit. Didn't soften. His body language was pure confrontation. Fists clenched, jaw locked, eyes sharp enough to cut steel. "You knew this all along, didn't you?" Lewis said, his voice a growl. "You've been pulling ahead while my car's been held back. Don't tell me you haven't seen the data. I know you've seen it." Charles straightened up, blinking slowly, clearly caught off guard but trying not to show it. "I don't control your setup, Lewis. I drive. That's all." Hamilton laughed, but it was a dry, bitter laugh. The kind that carried no joy, only fury restrained by discipline. "Come on, mate," he said, stepping closer. "Don't insult me. You think I don't notice how the garage goes quiet when I ask for a system diagnostic? You think I don't hear the whispers about how your updates are installed at midnight while I'm told mine are still being evaluated? Don't act like I'm imagining this. You know what's going on." Charles's expression shifted from confusion to irritation. His jaw clenched. He stood up now, eye to eye with Lewis. "You're crossing a line," he said, his voice low but firm. "This isn't about me. You're angry, and I get that. But don't accuse me of something I didn't do. I don't sabotage teammates. I'm not that guy." "Oh really?" Lewis snapped. "Because it sure feels like the whole team has already made their choice. And it's not me. You think I asked for this?" Charles shot back. "You think I told them to give me better gear? If there's a bias, that's not on me." "Oh, but you benefit from it, don't you?" Lewis said, his tone sharp like broken glass. "And you stay quiet. You say nothing. You just smile in the press conferences and talk about team effort while I'm stuck wrestling a car that won't respond." Their voices rose, now loud enough for the hallway to hear. A pair of Ferrari staffers outside froze mid-conversation. A junior engineer dropped his notebook. No one moved. No one interfered. The two titans of Ferrari, standing just inches apart, not as teammates, but as rivals, were at war. Not with fists, but with truths neither wanted to speak. Their relationship, already strained by months of tension, was fracturing in real time. And both knew it. Charles shook his head, stepping back with a bitter smirk. You know what, Lewis? I thought coming here, you'd raise the team's level. Push us all to be better. But maybe you brought something else instead, paranoia. Lewis's face hardened. And maybe you brought something worse, complacency. Charles exhaled sharply and muttered something in French, putain de cirque, before storming out through the side door. He didn't look back. Lewis didn't chase him. Didn't move. He stood there for a long moment, breathing hard, his chest rising and falling as the adrenaline kept surging. Then, without a word, he turned and walked straight to the team principal's office. There were no knocks. No courtesies. He pushed the door open like a man with nothing left to lose. Inside, the team boss looked up from his laptop, surprised. We need to talk, Lewis said, voice deadly calm. Now. Because this wasn't just a setup issue anymore. This was war. And war needed answers. Inside the Ferrari motorhome, the faint hum of the air conditioning couldn't drown out the storm brewing in Lewis Hamilton's mind. Frederick Vasseur sat alone in his office, lit only by the cool glow of his laptop screen as he pored over tire degradation telemetry. His brow furrowed slightly as he zoomed in on data from the left rear, Lewis's car again, off by 2 degrees under lateral load. He exhaled slowly, his instincts whispering what his mouth hadn't yet dared to say out loud. The door slammed open without warning. Lewis Hamilton entered, eyes like razors, posture coiled with purpose. He didn't bother with pleasantries. We need to talk. Now. Vasseur blinked once, shut the laptop, and gestured to the chair across from him. Of course, he said, voice calm but cautious. What's going on? But he already knew. Lewis didn't sit. He stood over the desk like a prosecutor, shoulders squared, voice low but heavy with gravity. I've had enough. I'm not here to play political games. I'm here to win. And what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling in that car, tells me someone doesn't want that to happen. Vasseur tried to interject, but Lewis raised a hand, silencing him with the authority of someone who spent a career fighting not just competitors, but entire institutions. I'm talking about override signals to my torque maps mid-race. I'm talking about energy recovery systems that mysteriously underdeploy only on my side of the garage. I'm talking about differential settings that change unpredictably during qualifying laps, causing understeer one moment and snap oversteer the next. You expect me to believe these are calibration issues? That every time, it's just a coincidence. He paused, letting the silence sting. I've raced long enough to know when something's wrong. I've raced long enough to know sabotage when I smell it. And right now, it reeks. Vasseur's facade began to crack, the calm, analytical Frenchman replaced by a man suddenly realizing the room was spinning far faster than he could control. He leaned back, his hands forming a slow steeple. There is no sabotage, he began, his voice more fragile now. But I won't lie to you. There are internal issues. We've been hit by supply chain delays. There've been component inconsistencies. Don't insult me, Fred. Hamilton's tone turned from cold to arctic. Save the PR for the cameras. I'm not here for corporate buzzwords. I'm here because I believe someone, maybe multiple people, inside this team have made a decision. A decision that I am not the priority. That I am not to win. That Leclerc is the future, and I'm just the guest star. His voice broke slightly, not from weakness, but the searing frustration of being betrayed by a machine he once believed in. And if that's the case, he continued, voice barely above a whisper, then you better be man enough to tell me. Right now. The silence between them stretched, unbearably tense. Vasseur stared down at the desk as if the answers might appear there. When he finally looked back up, his eyes were haunted. I'll open an internal investigation, he said, almost pleading. We'll tear your car down bolt by bolt. I'll personally oversee every part review. You have my word. Lewis scoffed. Your word? Your word doesn't repair trust, Fred. Your word doesn't rewrite race results. Your word doesn't erase the feeling I get when I walk into that garage and see eyes dart away from me." He turned to leave, then hesitated. "Get control of your team," he said, without looking back. "Or I'll find one that already has it." That night, the paddock was nearly silent. Mechanics had long since retreated, engineers buried in their motorhomes. The occasional flicker of a laptop screen was all that remained of a once buzzing hive. Alone in the Ferrari hospitality suite, Lewis sat with his phone in hand, thumb hovering over a contact labeled simply T. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he pressed call. 3 rings. Then the familiar Austrian accent answered. What did they do this time? Toto Wolff's voice was calm, but layered with something deeper, a quiet fury. Not surprise. Just confirmation. For the next 43 minutes, Lewis talked. Not as a Ferrari driver. Not as a frustrated employee. But as a world champion who felt the pillars beneath his legacy crumbling. He explained it all. Every suspicious discrepancy. Every inexplicable change in car behavior during critical laps. Every time telemetry had gone missing. Every moment a sensor warning was conveniently delayed or cleared. Every closed-door meeting that didn't include him. Every look in the Ferrari garage that made him feel like a stranger rather than a contender. Toto listened in silence. His breathing was steady, but Lewis could tell, the way he always could, that his old team principal was already building something in his mind. Not just sympathy. Strategy. "Charles is a great driver," Lewis said, voice softening. "But I'm not here to play second fiddle in someone else's fairy tale. I didn't come to Ferrari to be a placeholder. I came here to make history." "And they're not letting you," Toto replied. "No," Lewis said. "They're not." There was a pause, long and heavy. "You know what I'm going to ask," Toto finally said. "I'm not asking to come back," Lewis replied. "Not yet. But I need to know, if it came to that, would the door still be open?" Toto didn't hesitate. "For you? It never closed." A silence followed, warmer this time. Familiar. Trusting. "Thank you, T. Drive like you always do, Lewis. I'll handle the rest." Lewis ended the call and sat in the dark, the weight of betrayal still heavy, but now tempered by a flicker of something else. Possibility. Maybe even redemption. As the call ended, there was a rare silence on the other end of the line. No analytics. No data breakdowns. No coaching pep talks or post-session debriefs. Just Toto Wolff's voice, calm, clear, cutting through the noise like a scalpel. "You're in a hostile environment, Lewis," he said. The words weighted with the gravity of experience. "You're not crazy. You're not imagining this. I've seen it before. I've lived it. Ferrari plays for Ferrari. Not always for their drivers. Never forget that. Watch your back. Protect your data. And whatever you do, don't let them break you." Hamilton didn't respond right away. He didn't need to. He just stared out across the darkening landscape from the edge of the Ferrari motorhome's upper balcony, the Austrian hills swallowing the last hues of daylight. The air was heavy, humid, dense with unspoken truths. There was a chill in his chest, not from the altitude or the evening breeze, but from something deeper, a sense of realization he hadn't wanted to face until now. This wasn't about a bad qualifying run. This wasn't about understeer in Sector 2 or a mysteriously missing 10th on soft tires. This was about something much more insidious. It was about the glances he'd caught. The whispers that stopped the moment he entered the room. The subtle delays in pit communication. The new updates that never seemed to arrive on his side of the garage until it was too late. It was about the feeling that he was being isolated slowly, surgically, like a virus the host was preparing to expel. And Toto had confirmed it. This wasn't paranoia. It wasn't drama. It was real. He leaned on the railing, eyes fixed on the stillness below, but his mind was in chaos. His trust, the kind of trust that took years to build in a sport where betrayal hides in every briefing, in every strategy call, in every shared telemetry file, had been shattered. He thought back to the day he signed the deal. The cameras. The headlines. The promise of a new chapter. The allure of the prancing horse. The dream of becoming the first driver since Schumacher to bring glory back to Maranello. The legacy move. The fairy tale ending. But fairy tales are for children. This was Formula One. And in Formula One, loyalty is currency, but betrayal is strategy. And as he stood there, alone, betrayed yet burning, something inside him shifted. A familiar fire began to flicker. The kind of fire that had fueled him at Silverstone in 2008. In Istanbul in 2020. In Brazil when he came from the back of the grid to silence everyone who said he was finished. Only now, it wasn't just about proving people wrong. It wasn't about beating his teammate or defending a championship. This time, it was about dismantling the entire narrative that had been built around him. The carefully constructed story that Ferrari was his salvation, that he was the aging legend seeking one last hurrah. No. Not anymore. He wasn't here to be anyone's storybook hero. He was here to destroy the machine from within, to expose the politics, the favoritism, the rot that hid beneath the red paint and golden legacy. He was here to show that even in enemy territory, he could still rise. Still fight. Still win. Because Lewis Hamilton, once again, had become the outsider. The rogue. The problem child. The one they couldn't control, couldn't predict, couldn't silence. And that's when he's most dangerous. Not when he's celebrated. Not when he's loved. But when he's doubted. When he's cornered. When he's left to fight alone. Because in those moments, he remembers who he truly is. Not just a 7-time world champion. Not just a legend. But a warrior, forged in controversy, sharpened by injustice, fueled by something no team principal or strategist could ever understand. A man with nothing to lose, and everything to prove.